because when we perform patch management, we need to give Windows a reliable way to determine whether the application is currently installed on the machine or not. So we'll jump into the patch management. In order to set up patch management, you need to do two things. You need to set up an application container which contains your patch management rules, and you need to set up a group of PCs that will have the managed applications assigned to them. You can then assign the patch management group to the patch managed machines. So, for example, we will now create a new application container, and we'll call this Managed Applications. Okay, we will then go into the Managed Applications group, and we'll add a new software item. And in this particular case, we'll add, say, Adobe Acrobat. So we will jump into, Adobe Reader version 9. There's our setup. Okay, so that's exactly the same way that we add a normal application. And when you're setting up patch management, you can do this using any existing software container if you want to, including the applications that are already set up. Once you've actually saved that, though, it would have been good if I had saved it. I'll just add that one in again quickly. Once you have saved it, you then need to go in and modify the settings so that it knows how to uniquely identify that application. So we add in ID, apply, close. Okay, if we now take a look at the properties of this particular application, we'll see there is an application control section. This is the patch management setup. Now, in order to determine whether or not the machine has the application installed, we need the unique application identifier. Usually we're not going to know this offhand. In the case of Adobe Acrobat 9, it has one of the standard long hex ID ones, so we need to find that. In order to do that, we can get RDMC to search through its software database and locate a copy of the application that we can get that number off. This does mean that this will only work if the application has already been installed on at least one machine in the environment and inventoried. So if you're deploying an application which is new, you know for a fact that it's not going to be out there anywhere else, install it on a test workstation, make sure that workstation is inventoried. When the software manager in RDMC performs its update, that will then be added into the database. And you'll get the object definition. So if we hit load objects, we're now going to go and pull out the entire application list, which can be large because this list will contain every application that we have ever discovered in the environment. So this will take approximately 30 to 60 seconds to enumerate in this case. From that, we can then scroll through, find this particular application, and it will then tell us what the unique application ID is for the application that we're using. Now, it's important to note also that you will need to do this regardless of whether you're setting the application as mandatory or banned. When you set the application as mandatory, if it doesn't find the unique ID in the registry, it will use that as an instruction to go and perform the installation. In the case of a banned application, if it does find it, it will attempt to perform the removal. So now we wait for that to finish coming out. Okay, now that that's come up, you can see we've got our unique application identifiers on one side, display name on the other. You'll now also notice that, for instance, on some older applications, such as Adobe Acrobat 5, this was done before the unique application ID system existed. So in this particular case, the application ID and display name are the same. In the case of Acrobat, we're in alphabetical order based on the display name. So if we scroll up, we have Adobe Acrobat 9 Pro. This will actually appear under Adobe Reader. Here we are, Adobe Reader 9.3.2. So if we click that, it's now filled in the unique application identifier, and it will now know that this how to identify the application within the client machines. In this case, we want the application to be mandatory, so we tick this option, apply, and close. Now that's the first stage. Essentially what we're doing is setting up a series of rules. You can add a number of applications to this particular container. Some of them may be mandatory, some of them may be banned, and that acts as a single rule set. Because we then apply this rule set to a group of machines, it works in a method similar to group policy under Windows XP. You can create multiple different groups of application rules, multiple different groups of machines, and by determining which application groups or application rules you assign to each group of machines, you can effectively create reasonably complex setups to determine who gets what. So for example, you may have a machine which is a member of more than one group. It could be a group that is on the second floor of the building, plus in a group that marks it as being part of the accounting department. In that particular case, you could then assign it to both different application groups, in which case it would get all of the rules that apply to machines on the second floor, as well as the rules that apply to machines within the accounting group, and that kind of thing. So we will save our container with the rules, close. And now what we need to do is pick a group of machines, and in this case we'll take our group of test laptops here, and we will apply the patch management options to it. So in order to do that, we right-click on test laptops, go into properties, and again you'll see an additional tab here, software patch management properties. If you want patch management to apply, enable patch management to the collection, select the container. In this case we pick the managed applications container that we defined before, apply, that's it. That basically makes it live. As you can see, this group has now turned green. This indicates that it currently has a patch management, a set of patch management rules assigned to it. What will happen is, as the machines within that group go and automatically contact the RDMC server, which they should do every 30 to 60 minutes, as of the next time they establish contact, the console will check to see whether or not they've received the patch management settings. If they haven't, the settings will be rolled out and applied. Now, it is important to note that if you haven't used patch management before, you do need to turn it on in the Client Manager. So to do that, go down here, go into Enterprise Management, open the RDMC Client Manager, hit green to start, and just wait for it to contact. Okay, now once it finishes loading the machines, each of these should light up, but basically we go into Software Patch Management, change settings, make sure Enable Patch Management is turned on. You've got similar options to those that you use for normal application deployment. You can specify whether you want it to use a drive letter or a UNC path. If you say Display Progress Window, unlike the silent administrative install that we use for application deployments, in the case of patch management, it will display a little window in the upper right hand corner of the machine that says we are currently deploying patches. It will show what the status is, and that window will automatically clear when the process is over. If you don't want that to be made available, and if you want to make the patches completely silent, simply untick this option. But remember that that option will apply to all patch management properties on all machines, not just to a specific group. A couple of other things that we need to look at just briefly, so I will close down the Client Manager for the time being. We'll go back into our Managed Applications list. Now, one important thing to watch out for, particularly if you're going to be assigning a machine to more than one group, including with patch management rules assigned. So as you can see, you can set the application as mandatory or banned. If you're doing that for a single group, it can only be one or the other. However, it would be possible to put a machine in two different groups with two different patch management options, one of which has an application defined as mandatory, the other one having the application defined as banned. This can get quite entertaining. What will happen is the rules will get processed in order. It will detect it as a banned application first, remove it, then the mandatory application filter will jump in, detect that it's not there, put it back, then the banned one comes back in and checks it again, and basically it'll keep going on indefinitely. This can be really, really useful if you want to give the users the impression that IT are very busily doing things with their machines, but under most circumstances you don't want that to happen. So be fairly careful not to put the same application in as mandatory in one group and banned in another if you're going to apply it to multiple machines. A couple of other things to be aware of when we take a look at the settings within the application group. As I've mentioned, you can apply only a single patch management rule set to one group of machines. It's important to remember that in RDMC you can put a single machine as a member of multiple different groups. So if you want to apply multiple different rule sets to a particular machine, then what you would do is create several different device containers. You would have that device as a member of each of those containers and then apply the one individual rule set to each of those containers to make it active. That then allows you to have effectively full control, and you can get this to a very granular level down to the point that each individual machine effectively has its own patch management configuration based either on the fact that it is the only one that's a member of the group or that it is the only one that is a member of the particular combination of groups that provides that unique rule set. The last option that we'll look at, which is a very new one under Managed Applications, is the is Advanced Licensing. In RDMC version 7,